Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Wayne County Chambers podcast, For the Record. We want to say a special thank you to our sponsors, Sport Durst of Goldsboro, Goldsboro Builders Supply, and Professional Data Management. The Sport Durst team is ready to get you into a beautiful new Volkswagen, offering open and honest pricing on every vehicle and service. Sport Durst of Goldsboro understands the value of your time and dollars. Providing quality building materials since 1953, Goldsboro Builders Supply is your premier destination for custom designs and excellent service to builders and contractors in Wayne County and surrounding areas. Professional Data Management offers specialized service and technologies designed to help you gain maximum reimbursements for the valuable services that your office provides. Another huge thank you to our in-kind sponsors, Daniels Furniture, University Lights of Goldsboro, and Johnson Carpet One, who together worked hard to make our beautiful podcast set what you see today. And for the record, we're glad you're here.
Hey.
Andrea, thank you so much for being here. You are a very special Wayne County citizen, I think.
Thank you.
I think that's fair, right?
Thank you.
You're
I'm
a rock
so
star.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
I'm just so very happy to be here.
For the Record podcast. What do you think? It's pretty
I'm loving this.
It's pretty swank, right?
The setup, office, the people,
Yeah.
such good energy.
Yeah. So University Lights, they hooked us up with a light.
Of course.
Yep. Johnson Carpet One hooked us up with some
The
flooring.
beautiful floors. Yes.
And Daniels Furniture donated some furniture. I mean,
And this is very comfortable.
isn't it? Like
And I
you
love that.
actually, there's a whatchamacallit, recliner.
I could recline. Oh,
Yes.
that's good to know.
Your feet, my feet would hang off. Your feet would not. But
Yes, no.
You know what I mean?
I know. I'm trying to reach this table to make sure that I can
Here,
put my feet down.
I would move it in, but I'm
I'm
scared.
like this.
I'm so scared. I'm so scared.
I know the whole equipment.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here. We do appreciate it. And just want to learn more about you. I think there's a lot that people wouldn't know. And so I just want to dig into that. Can we do that?
Absolutely.
So if you can, just tell us who you are, name, who you represent, like where you work, that sort of thing. Tell us about your family, some of your background.
Sure. So let's start with my name.
Okay.
I think that's important because people call me Andrea, and all the different variations of it. But my actual name, being from Ecuador, is Andrea Freile.
And I can't roll my R's.
Andrea, you don't really need to.
Could you say it? I'm sorry. Could you just say your name again?
Let's try this.
For the world.
Andrea.
Oh.
You can do it, Scott.
Oh, no. I like listening to you do it.
To
All right,
me
yes,
saying it.
yes.
And the last name's Freile.
Okay.
And I think that's how most people in Wayne County know me now as Freile because I taught at Wayne Community for a while and my students just called me Freile.
Okay.
So it kind of stuck.
Okay.
But I'm from Quito, Ecuador. Quito is the capital of Ecuador, my home where I was born and raised, and I miss it every single day of my life. I've been here for over 20 years now, but there's not a day where I don't feel like I miss that part of me. So my mom and dad, they live here in the United States, as well as my sister Lorena. She also lives here, and my sister lives here in Goldsboro as well.
Okay, cool.
So that's a little bit about my family, my background,
Yeah,
my name.
Yeah.
Because names matter.
Yeah, you've got a daughter?
Yes. So my Bella, she's at ECU, and she hopes to be a city planner. She wants to come back to Goldsboro, actually. And I have a son, Jack. He is 9 years old. He goes to St. Mary's. And I'm married to Shane Ogburn.
Shane Ogburn. Very cool. And what is Shane? Shane's doing, what's he doing now?
Real estate.
Real estate.
Yes. And he is working with Rob Phillips with the firm.
Okay. Very cool. So shout out to Rob.
Yes.
And
Shout out
Shane,
to Rob and
you
Shane.
know, where you guys are.
And Bella and Jack.
Yeah, that's right.
Bella's very happy I'm here. She's already called me to see how things are going. So we need to take a selfie and send it to her later.
Okay, very good. I'm happy to do that. So you're from Ecuador. You say you've been here about 20 years. Before we talk about your job, can we just talk about let's talk about some of the differences. Like, I mean, what did you eat there versus what do you eat here? Like little things. Like I would imagine there's some things that you miss and they're different. So what are some of those things?
I do. I miss the food. I also miss how we eat, honestly, because so breakfast is important to us.
Oh.
Right, so breakfast is very important. I just can't imagine how people miss breakfast here, but they do, and I don't understand that. But what's really cool is around lunchtime we do gather back at home. So we're able to go back home and have a nice bigger three-course meal usually. And during that time, you can relax and connect with the family. We don't have dinner the way you do here. We do have a cafecito. So you could have maybe like a little sandwich and coffee at the end of the day to wrap up your day. But and that alone is very different because we do see those times to be with family, like the cafecito, as gathering times, times for conversation, times where things slow down a little bit. And that's probably one of the biggest differences is that here there's no slowing down, right? There's hardly any slowing down. So people are always on the go before work, during work, and even after work. And so I miss that moment of just this type of dialogue, having a coffee or a tea and just being present. I try to create those moments.
Sure.
But with everyone having different schedules and not everybody sharing that cultural aspect of where I came from, I miss that very much. So when I go to Ecuador, it's those moments that I enjoy the most.
It's got to feel probably like a vacation at this point.
It does, yes. It's been way over 20 years now, closer to 30 actually, that I think about it now. Yeah. But every time, like at the beginning, it felt like home, and then eventually it did feel more like a vacation because I have started to adapt to some of the things that we do here.
Right.
So it does make me feel a little different now when I go there.
Well, as a big fella, let's talk about food. You tell me something in Ecuador that you loved.
So my favorite things are the little like local things such as empanadas. And our empanadas are a little different. Empanadas de morocho, empanadas de queso, because they really are from our region. We don't even have morocho here, so I can't even make it for you to try it.
Oh.
But they're just the little things that you can have with coffee, because again, that time of day is my favorite time of day. So we would have the empanadas and the cafecito, and we would, just enjoy them while we talk. It's very different than Mexican food, and I think that sometimes I'm at the grocery store and people will ask me a question about food because they assume because I'm Latina that I know exactly like recipes from Mexico, but it's actually very different than Mexican food, than true Mexican food. We don't have a lot of spices. We do use garlic, but not a lot of spices. But so my favorite meals are like that. Betty Lamar has a place here in town, and
Lamar's,
she's from Ecuador. Lamar's Cafe.
Shout out Lamar's.
Shout out to Lamar's. And Betty sells our coffee. So you can go have a cafecito there from Ecuador. Yeah. And she will have empanadas, not the morocho, but she'll have empanadas de queso. So that's something we can do sometime so that we can enjoy that moment. Have you?
Oh, yeah.
There you go. So there's a little bit of Ecuador that she has in her beautiful little
repertoire.
Restaurant.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a nice little spot. So, all right. So you what brought you here? I mean, you came at how old were you when you?
So I was about 16 when I first came, and I first came by choice. I actually just came for a year of studying in another country, getting more familiar with the English language. In Ecuador, most of us, I want to say all of us, have to learn a second language. So we learn a second and third language usually. But after I was here for a while, both of my parents decided to come to the United States as well. So that was an unexpected move for me. I thought I was only going to be here for a year. And then my parents decided to come and follow along, and they came with my sister. So we've been here ever since. So I did my high school year in the U.S. and then all of my college career here in the U.S.
Nice.
The rest of my life was
career
in Ecuador.
Okay, so let's you finish college. Right?
Yes.
You're here. You finish college. Your parents are here, and it's time to start working, I guess.
Yes.
Take us through.
So my career has been. I've been so blessed. My first job was actually here in Goldsboro. It was a Wayne County Public Schools. I taught French.
You taught French?
Yes.
Serge. That's
French.
They say that's my French name.
That's your French name.
That's what they said. That's what my French teacher told me. In high school, I took French just one class of French.
You did French one.
And so they gave me Serge was my French name. I told somebody from France that. They said, no, your French name is Scott.
Yes,
I was like, okay. Well, that's no fun.
Yeah, but I taught French. That was my first job right out of college. And then I met an awesome man. His name is Stan Allen. He used to work here in the community who's in one of his interviews asked me, well, what do you really want to do? And I was like, well, I'm a communications major, and that's really what I want to do. And that's how it all started. I was able to get an interview with a Partnership for Children. It was brand new back then. It was a brand new organization. So my first job in communications was at the Partnership for Children. Eventually, I moved to Maryland, where I worked for the Naval Air Systems Command, or better known as NAVAIR. It's the civilian side of the Navy. Also working in communications and recruitment. And then after...
Hold on, let's stay with the, what was that? The Naval Air Systems and the something?
The Naval Air Systems Command.
Oh, wow. That sounds official.
It is official. I explain it best as saying it's a command of the Navy, but it's the civilian part of the Navy.
Understood.
So under my umbrella, we recruited scientists and engineers from different parts of the country, or Puerto Rico as well. So our job was to bring these journey level people to Pax River base to continue to enhance what was being created to support the Navy.
So the workforce there, you're basically helping build out that workforce, or get the workforce to that area. Is that right? On behalf of the federal government, I guess. Is that right?
That's right. And so I was recruited. At that point, I was in a master's program, the University of Notre Dame of Maryland, a strategic communications program.
I'm sorry, could you just say the university again?
Notre Dame of Maryland.
Okay.
And the strategic communications program allowed us to really understand and focus more on culture. And when I say culture, and I always like to express this because people sometimes think of culture and they think of like sombreros and ponchos and they envision, but culture just within the organization. So we specialize in understanding the culture of an organization, and that was my favorite part of my studies. And so that's what I was recruited to do, is to recruit different cultures. And by that, how do you bring a scientist to a new place? How do you bring an engineer?
Sure.
How does their mind think, and because they are very different than recruiting maybe someone from business or someone from finances or someone who's coming as an extrovert to work in HR or recruitment. And then after a couple of changes in my personal life, I decided to come back to Goldsboro because I wanted to be close to where I felt it was just a smaller area where I could raise my children. And that's when I got my job at Wayne Community College, which is where I've kind of connected with everybody since. I was so honored to teach communication studies there. And now I'm working for the Wayne County Public Schools.
The Wayne County Public Schools. And so are you a teacher?
No, I'm not a teacher. I have the privilege of working for two amazing people, Ken Dirksen and Dr. Artis. The position is the title is kind of long. It's Family Engagement and Communications Coordinator. That's a long title. But basically is a person who is looking into how to engage and make all families feel welcome, so that all families in Wayne County feel like they belong in our schools and in our community. And we're doing it through a cultural lens as well, because as you know, things are changing. The landscape is changing. So we're putting a little more emphasis on looking at this through culture as well.
So when we have talked before, I've heard you use the CQ.
Yes.
What does CQ? So most people think IQ and EQ.
And EQ for emotional
IQ
intelligence.
is intelligent, I guess intelligence.
Well, if any of my students are listening, they're going to be so happy that you just said that.
Really?
Yes.
And then there's emotional intelligence, which is EQ, and then now CQ, which I've not heard until you.
Okay.
So
well,
tell
that
us what
makes me feel
CQ
very
is.
happy, and my students are going to feel very happy too about this, because I spent a lot of my time in the classroom, or I spent a lot of time in my classroom explaining that a true leader in today's world needs to understand not only how to manage their organization, but how to understand that the world today is a global world, right? We're not just working in Wayne County and our products stay in Wayne County.
Right.
We are making products, and the people who are making the products with us here in Wayne County might be from another country.
Right.
And then these products are heading to other countries as well. So if we start understanding as leaders that our world is changing, and understanding that now we're a global world, we are able to sort of enhance our skills as leaders in cultural competencies, understanding more what other people, how the rest of the world sees us. And when we can understand how other cultures other than ours see us, we can expand our businesses, we can expand our education, and we can facilitate the dialogue between our children here and others around the world, which just adds to the idea of having a unified message of peace. So really, I'm honored that I got to teach that at Wayne, but I'm also honored that now I get to share that to principals and assistant principals and teachers,
Right.
and sort of explain to them how other people think. And once you're empowered with that information, how you deliver, whether it's a business or in this case, a class, it changes everything.
Well, isn't that the point of education? I would think the point of education is learning, right? It's growth. It's figuring out, it's being exposed to things that I didn't know before. And so it's discovery over and over.
Exactly.
And so I would think that that's all of what you just said so beautifully is sort of discovering the way other people think, the way other people move, the way they operate, the way they have lunch, the way they choose their meals,
the way how they sit and why they sit closer or farther, and why they, I came to the office and hugged.
Yeah.
And that all really matters. For the longest time, the curriculum has been based on how the curriculum here has been set.
Right.
But the reality is that just here in Wayne County, I often tell my teachers, it used to be that you had students that were born and raised in Wayne County, right? But now you have students from everywhere. Just in one classroom, you might have students from Haiti,
right,
and China, and Yemen, and Guatemala.
Yeah.
So it is important to learn that the curriculum is there, but how they think about it might be different. So how do we teach in a way that makes everybody feel welcome? Because even when we don't know, sometimes we are saying things that make people not feel welcome if we don't understand the culture.
Sport Durst Volkswagen Mazda of Goldsboro is proud to support Wayne County Chamber of Commerce. Family owned and operated, Sport Durst knows the importance of keeping local money local and supporting the community. We put our customers first with the area's best pricing, best trade-in value, and best selection of new and pre-owned vehicles. Come experience the Sport Durst difference, where customers and community come first.
Right. And at the end of the day, the baseline is these kids, whoever these kids are, they're our kids. If they're in Wayne County, they're our kids, right?
That's right. They're the future.
It doesn't matter where they come from. If they're in these borders, they're ours. And so we need them to be as strong as they can be, and we need teachers to be equipped to be as strong as they can be. So I think what a great move by Wayne County Public Schools to sort of, make this step and take this effort to try to say, hey, if we're going to advance our workforce, and we're going to get into this in a second, but if we're going to really move our workforce forward or really improve our skill-based kind of economy, then, that seems like a real strategic move that makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. I'm so grateful that Wayne County has created this position, because we needed something like this. And a long time ago, I was part of Wayne County leadership, and I met Dr. Artis then. And I remember making a wish, really, that one day I would be able to in some way influence our school systems like she does, but bringing the aspect of culture. And so during my time at Wayne Community College, I was also able to get more understanding about these concepts through worldview. And I was fortunate enough to be picked by Latinx Ed as one of the fellows.
All right, now hold on right there, because you said Latinx. You say Latinx, and my brain goes sideways, because some people say Latino, some people say Latina, some people say Latinx, some people say Latin this, Latin that. Could you just define for us? And for me, I'm an idiot. So consider me.
No, a lot of people
consider me the target audience, and maybe our viewers or our people will understand this too. What are the differences?
Okay. So Hispanic, with the HISP, right, comes from Spain.
Okay.
So you could call me Hispanic. You could say my friend Andrea is Hispanic. I know my background. I know where my dad's whole family came from beginning to end. But many Latinos in the United States do not have direct ties to Spain, right? So the term Latino or Latina came about to sort of cover everyone.
Okay.
However, Latinos and Latinas they still had an O and an A at the end, which is very attached to the Castilian language. Castilian is the Spanish that I speak. But the majority of Latinos that you have in this area do not speak Castilian. And a lot of people who live in areas such as Goldsboro that don't speak Spanish and they speak their own Mayan languages, for example, they don't have gender.
It's gender neutral.
It's gender neutral language. Yeah. So as education evolved in higher education, they wanted to honor them too. And that's where the X came from. So the X just brings everybody together under this term. And so it's a controversy. There are Latinos that feel strongly that we should be Latino and Latina because that attaches to our language, our Castilian language. But what about our friends who speak Mam, who are many of the people who live here in Goldsboro, for example? They have learned Spanish or they know it as part of what they had to learn a little bit, or they're learning it at, let's say, their workplace because a lot of Latinos work with them. But that's not their native language.
So are Caribbean countries like Haiti, is that considered Latinx?
No.
No, because I know that they sort of have a French, like Creole French is their, they're...
And that's a perfect example of people think it's French, but really the Creole is significantly different.
Right.
So I tried with the French that I do remember to understand conversations of our friends from Haiti, and it was incredibly different.
Yeah.
So and that's one of the reasons why we have enhanced the bringing interpreters to our system, because it is important to translate the right way. Not because I speak Castilian Spanish doesn't mean that the audience here is going to understand me.
Yeah. But I guess, and well, thank you, first of all, thank you for explaining that. That was a beautiful explanation. And now I feel way more informed. But, in many ways, I sort of have looked at you and I think in some ways maybe, I don't want to say wrongly, but certainly incompletely, in the sense that, I would consider you like maybe in Wayne County, maybe the Latino leader, Latina, Latinx.
Latina, you can say Latina.
Whatever, I'll get it right somewhere.
You can say Latina with me.
Yeah, Castile language. Anyway, I'm gonna pull that on somebody later on too. We'll be like, hey, listen, you know where this comes from? I'm gonna say it so wrong, but I've sort of looked at you in that way, like as a leader in that space and in that frame, and that's not wrong. But I just sort of look at your arc and I look at your history and I look at your future and I think, gosh, you're way more than that, right? I mean, the impact that you've had in different aspects of Wayne County life from your contributions, you're not a Latina leader, you're a leader.
Well, I appreciate that very much. For example, the Arts Council, that's a good example. Yeah. Being able to serve in the Arts Council and become president of the Arts Council, my main goal wasn't necessarily to bring Latin art. My main goal was to bring the youth to the arts.
Yeah, or just art, right?
Yes, because I think my passion is advocating for youth in different spaces and for different reasons. And art truly helps with emotional intelligence, right? So being able to bring them to the Arts Council and invite them into this new space that they didn't know existed, or maybe were aware but didn't quite sure. Many of my students said they really had never even heard of the Arts Council before because of their age.
And how about that location that the Arts Council?
How about that? Yes.
Shout out to Wayne County Arts Council.
Yes. So it's so everything I have done, including now with United Way and anything outside of my job, the idea is supporting advocacy of the youth.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that because I think people mean well. They mean well, but they tend to put people in a box. So she's Ecuadorian, therefore Latino issues only. But although I'm very passionate about helping Latinos, I'm also very passionate about helping all children. So I appreciate when people understand that it's a message of all, not just one group.
Yeah, and I think what I see too, which is so impressive, and I think most people who know you would know this, would recognize this, your ability to engage people just period is such a crucial gift and a tool that I think transcends. I think that's part of why this conversation today is so important is if people are paying attention, then it doesn't matter where you're from. Like if you care about people and you care about things, like it just transcends. You can, we were talking to some folks yesterday, and this animosity that people seem to have, or everything is about differences. Everybody's different. Well, yeah, there are some differences, but there's a lot more that's the same.
There's a lot more that's the same.
Right.
And if we all understood the culture of solution instead of the culture of argument, and it's hard. People don't even know that they're part of a culture of argument. Yeah. So they continue the you versus me, and they really truly do believe that they're all about fairness but if they have been raised in a culture of me versus you, and they're different and we're different, it's hard to tell, like, oh, I'm part of the culture. That creates more argument.
Right.
So the beautiful thing about education is teaching children, in this case, teachers and principals, what does the culture of solution look like? And about engagement, I did want to tell you there's a speaker, Julian Treasure is his name, and he teaches this concept called HAIL, H-A-I-L. And what he says is, if you want to be a great speaker, you must talk with honesty, authenticity, integrity, and love. And I think I'm such a big fan of Julian Treasure's work. And I think that's why, because in order to be able to engage, you do need to be present in that moment. And I'm fortunate to have been raised in a country that allows us to understand the importance of being present. But I'm also fortunate to have studied an art of communications that allows us to listen to understand rather than listen to be ready to respond to what you're saying. Yeah. And I think that's something that hasn't been taught here as much, how to listen to just listen and understand.
Well, but I think, and I would guess that companies could probably also reach out to you, right? If they need a little help.
Yes,
absolutely. With cultural, consultation, I could see companies benefiting, because particularly our larger industries, they employ a diverse workforce. I mean, Wayne County is, whether people realize this or not, is a very diverse workforce. Absolutely. And, but I could see you being very beneficial in that space too, right?
I mean, I've had the honor to do this for Mission Foods, for our city government leaders, for the police department. Yeah. And I do hope I continue to be called to do this type of conversations, really, because it's not teaching, it's just inviting people to see how and why listening to understand is important. I am amazed to how the culture in this area listens to respond. It's such a fast response. I mean, and so being able to listen and quietly understand what the other person is saying, especially if they're from another culture. And by that, I mean, they could really be just from like the North. Sure.
Yeah, well, because the South is its own.
Yes.
Listen, now I'm going to be honest with you. There's some things that we do down here, and it's how we roll, but.
So that really, and then staying authentic is important. I think a lot about that. When I wear my bracelets from Ecuador, or my jewelry that my dad got me, or I don't have to be like everybody else to fit in. And I think that authenticity, standing in your own truth and remembering your roots, but also knowing where you're planted and growing where you're planted, that's very important. I think those are keys to engagement. It's a feeling.
Well, and right. I mean, everybody should be in the United States of America. Everybody should be free to be whoever they are. I mean, and we. I always hear people try to get everybody to believe and act just the way they believe and act. I mean, I think the beauty of freedom, and I've always sort of had this feeling that you're the only you the world's got.
Yes.
Right? I mean, if that you goes away, that's the most interesting part.
Yes.
So wherever you came from, whatever your story was, whoever the real you is, you talked about having credibility as a speaker. I think you have to use your voice. It can't be everybody else's voice you've heard.
I think that's why you spend a lot of time when I taught at Wayne. We spent a lot of time understanding, who are you? What are your values? And it's amazing, Scott. You wouldn't believe how many students didn't know what their values were. When I asked them what their culture was, if they were from here, they would look at me like, "What do you mean? What?" And I was like, "What is your culture? What are your beliefs? What is your routine? What does your family share?" And they would look at me, and it was the hardest question they had ever been asked. And I would tell them, until we figure out your culture and your core and who you are and what your roots look like
Your
and where you're
identity,
planted,
yeah.
then you can't really speak with authenticity.
Yeah.
So a lot of people spend a lot of time teaching people to project. But really, I think the most engaging speakers are those who are able to connect.
Yeah. That's so true. That's so true. Well, let's talk about your job a little bit more, because I think that really is going to be impactful to the future Wayne County economy, right?
Yes.
And part of the reason for that is there's multiple efforts throughout the county related to the Latino workforce. So it's called, folks that I'm familiar with, it's the Latino Workforce Pipeline Initiative.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the key sponsor of that, I think, is the community college.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of partners involved.
Absolutely.
And the goal is to try to make sure that that's built out as strongly as possible and as beneficially as possible for all parties. Now, one of the challenges that we see, or that one of the most eye-opening things that I've read or saw or understood, is the data related to Latino males. The most underperforming in relation to the graduation statistic. They're not finishing. And in many cases, I don't want to presume, I'll let you speak to this, but they are just stepping out to go right into work, right? To support whatever situation they're in. But if they were just to stick around 2 or 3 more years, I mean, they'd end up with a high school diploma. They could end up with an associate's degree. They could end up with an apprenticeship. I mean, they could come out making, $65,000 a year, which would be significantly more beneficial to them and their families. Where's the disconnect there? Can you help me understand why that is such a challenge, or where that,
Absolutely. So first of all of that is true. But I think connecting it to my job, so it's key that part of my title that says family engagement is understood. See, we really cannot influence those students unless we influence their family. So we were talking about, differences between 2 countries. We do things collaborative. We do them as a family. We don't do them for ourselves.
And who's we?
So Latina families.
Okay, I see.
For example, just today, me being here, I made sure I texted my mom and dad and said, you will be sitting with me. You can't physically be there, but you'll be sitting right next to me. I'm not here by myself. I've got my mom and my dad by my side. I've got my grandparents right here where I can see them. I'm wearing my grandmother's ring. Everything that we do is collaborative. So if you are trying to, so much of what the world looks like here is individualistic, right? Like you go to college, or your plan, and that doesn't speak to us. It doesn't. So my job, I've got this great privilege now to be able to engage families so that they can listen to the message of why we need to hold on a little longer. Contrary to the belief, many of the children in our community are documented. Many people believe they are not, but they were born here, they're documented, they're able to go to school. But you're right, by not engaging the families and not showing them people that look like them, or not having people that care for them, it's easy to disengage them as an audience. And because they're going to sit there why, right? So it's easier for them to go and work in what their mom and dad or what their dads are doing. So wherever they might be working, they might be earning more money per hour than whatever they could make at that time. So that is why that family engagement part of the job is so crucial. And if I execute it correctly, hopefully we'll, as a team with others in the community, including yourself, we'll be able to make a big difference in how Latinos welcome the concept of certificates or degrees. And we do have as you know, we've got an awesome leader at the community college who is really looking
isn't she
at
great?
this.
She's great. I mean, and she knows this stuff. I mean, Dr. Pfeiffer, she is a gift.
Yes.
She's wonderful. So, I mean, the interesting thing to me, from an economic standpoint, is that it seems like it's one of because there's such a Latino demographic in Wayne County, and there's a lot of Latino kids or Latinx kids, it seems like it's an opportunity. like it's a huge opportunity that if capitalized on, you don't have to go looking around to figure out how you can improve your skilled labor. You can do it very, very quickly with the kids and families you already have in the county. And, and I know that the school obviously is trying to do that. So I'm just curious what we as a community could do to help, encourage and support growth in that skilled, particularly for the trades. So we've got all these trade companies and all these industries who need workforce. They need this skilled labor.
Yes.
I feel like we have some people who have the talent to do that and have the initiative to do that. And that's across the board. That's not just Latinos, but just how do we engage more of our kids and more of our families to see the value of, well,
first of all, Scott, I'm complimenting you not because I'm in your office. I'm complimenting you sincerely because the fact that you understand that value. And speaking to other Latinx leaders across the state, if the Chamber of Commerce doesn't understand that concept, we hurt. Because it is critical to understand that if we do it correctly, it will be a gain for the community.
Right.
It's very hard to visualize what the year 2040 is going to look like. But your job is to visualize that, is to visualize how the community changes and how the businesses change. And not every chamber is able to do that. So thank you for considering this. And again, sort of like we were talking about public schools and Dr. Pfeiffer, you as a leader yourself I know that we are moving in the right direction when everybody's view is aligning as to where we need to head. And I think we're very lucky to have that. Not every county can say that about their chamber or the president of their community college or the people that they work for at central office. But to answer to your question about what we can do or what you can do or others can do, at a smaller scale, I think it's critical to understand that the volunteer part of this is crucial. And if we could have 1 hour or 2 hours a week to interact with a classroom or a teacher or let's say the migrant classroom specifically, and just give that time so the students can see people in different fields and just showing them that one-on-one interaction, that's life-changing.
And just support, right? And I think that's every kid. I mean, when we were able to talk to principals just a few weeks ago, and we listened to a lot of concerns that they had brought up, but the number one concern they had was not more money. It was not more stuff. It was not more this. It was, we need people. Like if people, could just give a little bit of their time to come in and say, high five kids, eat lunch with a kid, kind of just show support, tangible support. It was, and what the principals communicated to us was that it doesn't just benefit the kids, it benefits the teachers who are trying to help those kids because the teachers are so, exhausted. And so it's like, well, there are certain things that we as a community can't do, but as you just pointed out, there are certain things we can. And
it's something so small.
Right.
I think sometimes people hear volunteer and they're just like, oh my, but really, what if you didn't think about it as volunteering? What if you thought about it as you are going to validate someone's humanity?
Yeah.
What if you thought about it as in that hour, you're going to validate someone's worth? Mm-hmm. You are going to change their story. And it sounds big, but it's the truth.
Well, I like to say it like this. Look, imagine that you moved your family from Wayne County to Wake County, even. And so your kids are at this new school, they're at this new place, this new rhythm, this new cycle. Wouldn't you want people to care about what happens to your kid? And I think to me, just that simple translation, that is universal. That is not reserved for certain kinds of people or certain types of people or certain ethnicities of people. It is a human, from a parent's standpoint, I want my kids to be cared for wherever they go, right? And so I just think just that basic value of saying, hey, if I've got some time and I can contribute, and so if there's people who are listening today and they can contribute, then that's a great way for them to do it. And no matter what the kid's background is, anything you can do to encourage those kids to give them aspirations, to sort of give them vision for their life, to see that they can succeed. And they don't have to do it in another county. They can do it in this county.
Absolutely.
Right?
I think it's something so small, but it is so big. People think that to help, it has to be all this money. And of course, it will be great. It would be great to have new items for the migrant classroom per se, if that's one of but really just having someone from the community sitting with the students, understanding their backgrounds. Why did this little girl come from Haiti? What's her story? So then that person can tell others about this family from Haiti and understand why they are here. There's so many misconceptions. People truly assume that people are here because of something someone told them at some point or they saw on TV, and that is not why people are here.
Oh yeah, or what they read on the internet. I mean, how much stuff how much dumb stuff have people believed just because it was on the internet?
And the thing is that if you have that one-on-one time with someone,
me included.
Well, if you have that one-on-one time with someone to ask them about their story, it changes everything. Because you understand why they are here. And it could blow your mind when you hear the responses. And then you realize, I really didn't know. But people, even leaders, sometimes speak as if they know. But when have they actually talked to that child and understood where they came from and their story? So it is critical, I think, that more people listen to the stories of the children and the teens in our community. That's what made me so passionate about this journey is my whole background was communications and culture, but it wasn't until I taught in the classroom and I listened to stories from my students who were born and raised in Wayne County and listened to their background and listened to the stories of those who just came to Wayne County and those who are documented, those who are not, and those who have parents who have always been here. Those stories, they impacted me and helped me see youth in a completely different light, youth as a whole in a different light. And I became an advocate. I didn't say I'm going to be an advocate,
Right.
Like it happened. And I think that's why that is crucial is if you can just go a couple of hours and I encourage our community leaders to go for a couple of hours and sit with a child and validate their humanity. I often talk about how impactful that was for me. I was only in my early 20s when I worked for the Partnership for Children, and I met people who are now great community leaders, but even then they were like Sherry Archibald and Donna Phillips.
Oh my goodness.
And Jeff Holes.
Oh.
Don Magoon was my boss.
Wow. Those are all just
phenomenal people to learn from. And I watch them because if you're not from here and you don't have anyone that looks like you sort of gravitate to those who listen to you and validate you and ask you how you are doing. Because a lot of people, if you look different, still to this day, they don't talk to you. So they did, and I was able to, and just that alone validated me and helped me understand the direction.
It raised your floor. In other words, like your ability to become whoever you were going to be got higher.
Exactly.
Your potential got higher simply because of what you just said, because somebody listened and bought in. And I think if the same thing occurs for kids, right, the kids you work with, the families you work with, it's the same principle. And it's not just, okay, yes, it is for that kid and for their family, but anytime you raise the capacity and the potential and the aspirations of those kids, you are doing so for your community. In other words, the floor for your community gets raised, not just the floor for that kid and that family. It's not either or. It's not I'm taking away from my opportunity and my family to try to raise the opportunity for you and your family, right? I mean,
that is just perfect.
Yeah, it's shared. I mean, it's our home and we share it, and anything we do to build it is a net win for everybody.
That is so beautiful that you just said that, and I don't think I could have said it better, but that's really the ultimate truth about this whole thing is if we as a community unify, that unified team feeling that we're all trying to nourish and nurture in Wayne County, we win.
That's right.
We win as a community. Our businesses win. If we don't,
we lose.
We lose.
Yeah. Well, gosh, what a great conversation.
That is,
I mean, honestly, I could have this conversation all day long because there's so many parts that are interesting, and it's so rare to be able to have an opportunity to hear from somebody who has, really personal knowledge and and just love what you're doing in the school and love what you're doing in the community. And so on behalf of Wayne County, we're thankful for you. So I want to finish with a question we like to ask everybody. So what motivates you now? Like at this stage of your life, you've accomplished a lot. You've come a long ways. Now people kind of know who you are. They respect you. But what is the thing that, man, wakes you up in the morning and you're like,
My students, my former students are watching me.
Yeah.
If I do this right, then the students that learn from me will say, I can do that too. And so it is important that I show them that they can be bigger and better by acting the message of unity and culture of solution every single day. And in a culture that is not necessarily one of solution often, it is a challenge. Yeah. But that is the first thought in my mind is I think of Jack and Bella, my children. They are watching me. It's what I do. They are watching, but also all my former students who are watching me. And so I want to ensure that they have an example that if they didn't have someone in their family, if they didn't have a friend who they could be like, I want to be just like them, they could say, you know what, if Miss Freile could do it, she's 4'11", and she's got an accent, and she did it, then I can do it too. So I think that's my biggest motivator every day. So that makes me want to get up every morning.
Well, it's been such a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Scott, for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah. All right.
Thank you so much.